Hello, my dear friends. I am so happy you are here today. You are about to listen to a story that is full of feelings, choices, and surprises. It is called A Walk in the Night. Maybe it will remind you of something in your own life, or maybe it will simply take you to another world. Please relax, listen closely, and if you can, shadow my words. This video is for listening and speaking practice, and I promise you, every small step you take makes your English stronger. You are doing better than you think. Welcome to Fluent English Every Day. My name is Clara, and I will be your storyteller for today. When I was 19, I lived in a quiet town near the sea. The houses were small, and the streets were always calm. But inside my heart, I dreamed of something more. I wanted adventure, I wanted love, and I wanted to feel special. In that town, there was a young man named Julian. He was 24, tall and confident. Many girls liked him, and some even tried to get close to him. I was shy, but to be honest, I liked him too. I often watched him from far away, wondering if he would ever notice me. People often spoke about Julian, and their words were not always kind. My mother said, "Clara, he is not the right one for you. Stay away." My cousin whispered, "He will break your heart, just like he broke the hearts of others." But I didn't listen. I told myself that they were wrong. I thought maybe they just didn't understand him. Deep inside, I wanted to believe he was different with me. I wanted to believe that he was kind and good. And when you are young, sometimes your heart is louder than your mind. One evening, there was a party in the town square. Music filled the air, and colorful lights shone against the dark sky. My friends were excited to go, and I didn't want to miss it. My mother said, "It is not safe at night." I held her hand and said, "Please, I will stay close to my friends, I promise." After a long silence, she finally agreed, though I could see the worry in her eyes. I promised myself I would be careful, but my heart was already beating fast with curiosity about what the night might bring. At the party, the atmosphere was magical. People were laughing, dancing, and enjoying themselves. At first, I stayed close to my friends, smiling and watching the lights. Then, out of nowhere, Julian walked in. My breath stopped for a moment. He looked around, and then his eyes met mine. He smiled, and it felt like the whole world disappeared. My hands trembled slightly, and my heart was racing so fast I thought others could hear it. I didn't know what to do, but before I could think, he started walking toward me. "Would you like to dance?" he asked, his voice calm and smooth. I could hardly believe my ears. I nodded and followed him to the center of the square. The music played softly, and we moved together in rhythm. His hand was warm when he held mine, and his eyes shone under the lights. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was living inside a dream. People around us were laughing, but I could only hear the sound of my own heartbeat. He leaned close and told me small jokes, and I laughed even when they were not very funny, just because it felt good to be near him. When the party ended, Julian leaned down and whispered, "Let's go for a drive." My heart jumped at his words. I hesitated, but the thought of being alone with him felt exciting. I told myself nothing bad could happen. I said yes. His car was shiny, and everyone in town knew about it. We drove slowly through the streets. The windows were open, the air was cool, and above us, the stars were shining. I wanted to remember that feeling forever. I thought to myself, maybe this was the night my life would change. But then, things began to feel different. Julian turned away from the main streets and drove to a lonely road near the hills. The houses disappeared. The lights from the town faded behind us. It was so dark that I could only see the faint glow of the stars above. He stopped the car, and the silence around us was heavy. He turned his face to me, and his eyes looked deeper than before. My heart was no longer calm. I felt both curious and afraid at the same time. He came closer, and I didn't see it coming. Julian leaned closer, and my hands began to shake. I whispered softly, "Julian, I want to go home." But he didn't listen. He smiled in a way that made my heart uneasy. His hand touched mine, and his eyes grew serious. I pulled my hand back quickly, but he moved closer again. I said more firmly, "Please, I don't feel comfortable." He sighed, rolled his eyes, and said, "Why are you always so careful? Don't you trust me?" My chest grew tight, and I looked away, staring at the dark road outside the window. The silence inside the car felt heavy. I wanted to believe he would respect my words, but instead, his face changed. He frowned, and his voice became cold. "You are boring," he said sharply. My heart sank into pieces. I had dreamed of this night for so long, and now I wished I had stayed home. He suddenly opened the car door and said, "Fine, then get out." At first I thought he was joking, but he was not. My voice trembled as I said, "Julian, don't do this." But his eyes looked hard and empty. And before I could think, I was standing outside the car. The sound of the car door closing behind me felt louder than the music at the party. The engine roared, and then the car disappeared into the night, leaving only dust on the lonely road. I stood frozen, my hands shaking, my legs weak. The road was silent, and the shadows around me felt endless. I was 19, far from home, with no light. For the first time in my life, I felt completely abandoned. Tears filled my eyes, and I whispered to myself, "What do I do now?" I started to walk, but my shoes were not made for long distances. The gravel pressed against my feet, and every step hurt. The night was cold, and the wind touched my skin like ice. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to feel warmer, but the loneliness inside was stronger than the chill. I thought about my mother's words. Her warning echoed in my mind, and I wished I had listened. My heart was broken, not only because Julian left me, but because I had trusted him so much. It broke my heart to realize he didn't care. As I walked farther, the sound of my footsteps was the only thing keeping me company. Out of nowhere, a dog barked in the distance, and I jumped in fear. My breath quickened, and I told myself, "Stay calm, Clara. Just keep walking." The road seemed never-ending, and the stars above looked far away, too far to give me comfort. I whispered small prayers with every step, asking for strength, asking for safety, and asking for this night to end. I had no choice but to keep moving, even though my body felt weak. My feet began to burn with pain, and blisters formed with every step. I stopped for a moment, sitting on a rock by the side of the road. Tears rolled down my face, and I covered my mouth so no one could hear me cry, even though no one was there. I thought about my friends still at the party, laughing and dancing. I imagined them in their bright dresses, smiling under the lights. And here I was, alone in the cold, walking in the dark because of a boy I thought I loved. The road twisted and turned, but finally, I could see the first faint lights of the town far ahead. It gave me a small hope, like a candle in the night. I stood up and forced myself to keep walking, even though my legs were tired. Every step was painful, but I told myself I would not stop. I wanted to see my home again. I wanted to see my mother's face, and I wanted to feel safe. My heart ached with regret, but also with a strange new strength I had never felt before. When I finally reached my home, the door looked like the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. I pushed it open with trembling hands and stepped inside. The warmth of the small house wrapped around me, and I felt safe at last. My mother woke up when she heard the door. She looked at me, and her eyes filled with shock and fear. She asked Clara what happened, but I could not answer. My lips shook and tears poured from my eyes. I ran to my room, sat on the bed, and cried until my pillow was wet. The next morning, I told my friends what had happened. Their faces grew serious, and they looked at each other quietly. One of them finally whispered, "Julian has done this before." My heart stopped. I asked, "Why didn't you warn me?" Another friend looked down and said, "We thought you knew." Their words cut deeper than a knife. I realized that everyone knew his true nature, except me. It broke my heart to think that I had trusted him while others stayed silent. I felt small, foolish, and betrayed. For many weeks, I carried the pain in my chest. I could not eat, and I could not smile the way I used to. Every corner of the town reminded me of Julian. I walked past the square and remembered the dance. I walked past the road and remembered the night. Sometimes I asked myself, why me? Why did I have to learn this lesson in such a hard way? But slowly, very slowly, I began to see things differently. I understood that life gives us pain not to destroy us, but to make us stronger. 2 years later, I left that small town and moved to the city. I found a job in a small shop near the station. At first, I was nervous, but I learned to work hard and to trust myself again. The city was loud and busy, but I loved it because it gave me a new beginning. I met new people, and I made real friends who cared about me. I learned how to live alone, how to take care of myself, and how to dream again. For the first time in my life, I felt free. One rainy afternoon, something happened that I didn't see coming. I was standing outside without an umbrella, waiting for the rain to stop. Suddenly, a man walked up to me and said, "Do you need help?" He held a large blue umbrella, and his smile was kind. His name was Daniel, and from that day, my life slowly began to change again. We talked, we laughed, and we discovered many things in common. Unlike Julian, Daniel listened when I spoke, and he cared when I was sad. My broken heart started to heal. Years passed, and Daniel became my partner, my friend, and my family. We married in a small garden surrounded by flowers. My mother was there, smiling with tears in her eyes, proud of the woman I had become. Sometimes on quiet nights, I think back to that long walk in the dark. I remember the pain, the fear, and the loneliness, but I also remember the strength I found on that road. Without that night, I might never have learned how strong I could be. My dear friends, life is not always easy. Sometimes people will hurt you, and sometimes you will feel lost in the dark. But please remember this: you are stronger than you think. Every difficult moment is also a step forward to a better life. I believe that pain can be the beginning of something new, just like it was for me. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. You did amazing with your practice. Please keep going, keep listening, and keep speaking a little every day. If you enjoyed this story, Don't forget to subscribe to Fluent English every day for more stories. You are never alone on this journey. Until next time, keep learning, keep believing, and keep moving forward.